Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Voice is still not back to 100%, but feeling much better than yesterday. We've got a 2v2 today, submitted by a viewer, so y'all are in for a special treat. We've got the Dwarves and the High Elves facing off against their sort of enemies, their grudge matches, if you will. We've got the Dark Elves and the Skaven fighting here in the desert. So let's take a look at the builds. We've got the Rune Lord leading the way for the Dwarves. Front line's going to be Dwarf Warriors, Warriors of Dragonfire Pass. Got some miners with blasting charges, Longbeards. Let's see here, Grumbling Guard, Dwarf Warriors with great weapons, plenty of Slayers in the back as well. We've got some Gyros, looks like Rangers also. The Goblobber here. For the High Elves, we've got some Spearmen, a couple Bolt Throwers, Alariel the Radiant, Lothran Seaguard, and Sisters of Avalorn. Got some White Lions, Dragon Princes, more Spearmen, Swordmasters. Nice balanced formation there from the High Elves. Then for the Dark Elves, we've got a very heavy ranged build from them. Repeater Crossbows, couple Shades, got a couple Cold One Knights here with a Dreadlord Sword and Shield, Feral Manticore, which is an interesting choice certainly. Fire Sorceress. We've also got some more Bleak Swords and Dark Shards sort of supporting the Skaven formation, as well as a Feral Manticore. Speaking of said Skaven, we've got 3 Plague Claw Catapults, a couple of Poisonwind Globadiers, Gutter Runner Slingers, plenty of Clan Rats, Death Runners in the center, and we've got a Gracier Lore Ruin as well. So without further ado, we're going to get the battle underway here. And the Dwarf High Elf, let's call them the Order Alliance. The Order Alliance pushing forward here, going to be taking up a position where they can kind of cover this approach here and this approach here. So, you know, any way that the I guess chaos, not technically chaos, but you know what I mean, forces are going to be forced into this kind of hot gates here, or else they're going to have the coordination to come all the way up and around this way, which I definitely think that this would be a better option. The Dwarves and the High Elves are going to be able to pretty effectively cover this zone right here, especially this particular area where the gyrocopters are flying over right now. You know, this kind of little hot gates area right here could potentially become really, really rough. I mean, Lariel's got Banishment, we've got plenty of units with blasting charges, plenty of artillery and other ranged units, so it could be rough. Speaking of rough time, these Dark Riders are in for it, coming up here unsupported into range of all of this artillery, the only real target in range. They're all just going to start unloading here, so the Goblobber, the cannons, all doing their part, starting to take down those unit models there. And meanwhile, the Feral Manticore is also flying up and around. You can see the Bolt Throwers thinking about taking some shots at them, but actually now going to switch over onto the Scatter Shot on these Dark Shards, which is definitely a good choice. The Dark Shards, obviously, with their armor-piercing missiles, are going to be a big risk to the Dwarves and the High Elves here. So, very good job concentrating on them with all of this overwhelming artillery. Meanwhile, the Sisters of Avalorn and other long-range High Elf units shooting up and over the cliffside here at these Dark Riders, sort of warding them off. We've got Gyros just kind of maneuvering around, repositioning, not really wanting to get caught up by those Feral Manticores. And the Feral Manticores also don't just want to be tossed in here willy-nilly to then just enrage and die. But this is a little bit of an odd situation here. You can see the Skaven player very much just hanging back, and I'm not really sure why the Dark Elf player advancing just completely unsupported here, but we are going to get a small melee engagement underway as these miners with blasting charges kind of cover the approach here. They're going to be pitching their charges into those Bleak Swords there and just kind of hanging back. Looks like they're actually pulling back a little bit there, just letting the artillery and ranged units really work over those guys. But I mean, Bleak Swords won't really do a whole lot to miners anyway because of their armor. Granted, miners do have pretty terrible combat stats, but you can see the Plague Claw Catapults finally able to start opening up shots, and it is going to be pretty brutal for these Lothran Seaguard if they start to connect. Looks like a swing and a miss there, but these other two, one of them right on target and doing some very devastating damage. You can see the Bolt Throwers already opening up shots on the Plague Claw Catapults here, and they're going to be pretty decent at counter battery fire. The bolt throwers in general, you know, they're quite accurate, and the Skaven artillery pieces are quite large. You can see already one of them is destroyed, and the bolt's still, you know, just persisting in the air here. But yeah, they're going to be very adept at destroying the actual unit models of the artillery themselves. Both the Plague Claw catapult and the Warp Lightning Cannon have the same issue, but Fireball unleashed from the Fire Sorceress here, it's going to come in and actually do a lot of damage to those dwarves. Just cuts through like 4 or 5 ranks of dwarves there, taking out quite a few unit models. Looks like about 12 unit models there. Not bad at all, considering that's a cheap spell, relatively speaking. The Dark Shards, despite all the damage they've taken, have advanced here and are starting to lay down some damage. The Rune Lord is up on the anvil though, so this Flaming Sword Rune is actually doing more harm than good because it does imbue magic damage as well. All of these units, even the High Elves, are going to have magic resistance because of that Locus of Power there. So if we look, even like these High Elf units here are going to have a baseline 15% magic resistance. So using that, ooh, nice Warp Lightning going down right on top of the Dwarves there. So yeah, Skaven definitely have some good plays here, but the main issue I have with this is, number one, the Dark Elf player is advancing completely without the Skaven player's support. The Skaven player kind of has the right idea. Just sit back, allow these Plague Claw catapults to do as much damage as they can before they get taken out by those bolt throwers. One of them already down. But you're going to be able to do some damage here. But, I mean, if the Dark Elf player is really intent on advancing, this Skaven player needs to come up and reform along this front here before, you know, the Dark Elf forces, number one, are completely gone, and number two, before the High Elves and the Dwarves are able to effectively cover this area, you know, and get something there that could be potentially devastating. The Plague Claw catapults are doing some good damage. They've already done some good damage to those Sisters of Averlorn there. Fortunately, in the back line, the Dark Riders, again, just going in piecemeal and getting seen off quite easily. Same thing with these Cold One Knights here, so it's a pretty unfortunate situation. Finally, the Skaven realizing that they need to advance through the Hot Gates here, but at this point, the Dark Elf forces have taken so much damage that it's going to be potentially a pretty rough situation. And don't forget, certain someone is over there with a certain spell, and a certain spell is going to be dropped in the middle of these Hot Gates here, so we'll just watch as the carnage unfolds here with this massive banishment just wrecking through this center area here, and getting a really nice, favorable sort of spread as well as it rides right over the Skaven formation, just doing an insanely devastating amount of damage, not to mention some of the Dark Elf forces also kind of riding through there as well. So looks like a Scorch going to be used in retaliation, but that basically does nothing to the armored units here. And yeah, L'Ariel, not sure exactly how many kills she got there, but up to 306. Another very nice Warp Lightning going down. Certainly the Skaven have had some good plays here, but waiting, I think. The Skaven and Dark Elves just needed to have better coordination. You know, they kind of engaged piecemeal between the two of them, and it really ended up costing them. You can see the Skaven trying to engage here, but a lot of the, like, Poison Wind Globadiers, for example, getting caught up into combat here. Looks like maybe Death Frenzy going down there. Interesting. Upgraded Death Frenzy, so it had an area of effect, which is definitely going to help, but just check out the blasting charges right on top of the Plague Monks and the Death Runners, getting some really nice value. We'll soak up some cinematics of the High Elves and the Dwarves fighting shoulder to shoulder against the nasties here. You can see the Dark Elf Sorceress really not too happy about that situation, going to be pulling back. And yeah, the Disorder Alliance going to be kind of surrounded here a little bit by the High Elves and the Dwarves. Their units just not holding up under this unending barrage here, and all of the ranged units for the Order Alliance still able to fire in more or less with impunity. Some of them have taken some damage, but we've got cannon shot, we've got bolts flying over still. Shades have been taking some damage from those bolt throwers, and yeah, it's just brutal stuff, man. What a cool shot, though. We've got these Slayers with their axes out running in. So the Shades actually do have great swords, so I mean, they'll be okay in combat, but I think Shades are a little bit expensive for what you get out of them. I feel like they're just too squishy. They certainly can be made to work and can be very effective in the right situation, but personally, I'm not the biggest fan in the world. But a very fun battle. Big thanks to the person that submitted this. Don't remember your name offhand, but big thank you. A lot of you guys have been asking for some fun 2v2 battles. This is sort of thematic. I mean, I don't know that the dwarves and the high elves would ever actually work together, but I figure against these two would be like if you figure that the Skaven are teaming up with the dark elves, maybe that would be a big enough threat to force the dwarves to work with the high elves potentially. But you know, we can all imagine whatever the case may be. At least it's a semi-thematic matchup. Certainly, the dwarves versus Skaven is thematic, and high elves versus dark elves, of course. Very thematic, so hopefully y'all enjoyed watching this one. Not the most competitive battle, but certainly a fun 2v2 and a very good use of some artillery synergy there. Particularly like the use of the bolt throwers, you know, and everything. It definitely seems like the dwarf player and the high elf player had a better game plan, and I don't know if they were actually like in voice chat together, but it definitely seemed like they were communicating better. And communication is one of those things that, I mean, obviously in a 1v1 you're never going to need to communicate with yourself, you know, about the battle, but maybe you talk to yourself while you're fighting. But anyway, in a 2v2, obviously, you and your teammate need to communicate and coordinate your attacks and your overall strategy and game plan. It definitely seems like both teams tried to bring synergistic builds, but at the end of the day, in execution, the dwarves and the high elves did a lot better job of executing, you know, a unified strategy, supporting each other well. You know, they had very good fire discipline and target priority just in general. So very fun battle, well played to everyone involved. Hope y'all enjoyed watching that one. Just quickly in terms of the breakdown here, 306 kills at the end of the day for Alariel, 99 on the Swordmasters. The bolt throwers, not the most kills, but they did some good damage to the ranged units here, both of the Skaven and the Dark Elves there. Yeah, for the dwarf here, the bolt thrower, or sorry, the Goblobber did quite well. Cannon also did decently. The Slayers racking up quite a few kills, and just overall the Dog Resilience holding nicely in the front line. Gyrocopters also racking up some solid kills there. For the Dark Elves, again, just advancing piecemeal, unsupported from the Skaven was definitely a big mistake. Had these guys advanced more together, they could have got a lot more damage done, but how about that? 101 kills on the Gracier Lord Ruin. The Plague Law Catapults also got some decent damage done, although certainly I feel like if you're going to be facing accurate counter-artillery fire, Skaven artillery sometimes can be very, very risky, you know, against things like cannons and bolt throwers, which obviously these two factions can bring. So I might have switched these guys out just for like Rad Ogres and gone with more of a rush strategy, deployed up on the high ground there. But anyway, very fun battle. Hope you all enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button, so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.